Jake met Lena in Paris, beneath a stone archway that framed the Seine like a painting. She was late to a marketing seminar. He was early, coffee in hand and already bored. Their first conversation lasted 6 hours. Within a week, they had memorized each other's coffee orders. Within a month, they had moved in together. Paris was a dream. They both had demanding careers, Jake in international law, Lena in luxury branding, but somehow, it worked. She brought color to his precision. He steadied her chaos. They laughed often, fought rarely, and always found their way back to each other. Love, in those early days, felt easy. When Lena's job pulled her to London, Jake didn't hesitate. "We'll make it work," he said. She smiled, relieved. He followed, trading his Manhattan skyline for gray drizzle and quiet cobblestones. They married in a registry office with 2 friends and a bottle of champagne. The photos were blurry, but they didn't care. Love, they believed, didn't need to be perfect to be real, but perfection has a way of asking questions love can't always answer. Jake first noticed the change in New York, a year into their marriage. They were back temporarily for a client merger. Lena was distant, distracted. She lingered on phone calls, typed with her screen tilted away. She said it was stress. Deadlines. Jet lag. One night, he found a hotel receipt from Rome tucked inside a travel guide. Lena had told him she was in Berlin that weekend. The receipt had a single name printed at the top, Ms. Lena Hartley. The room was booked for 2. He asked her about it casually, not wanting to sound accusatory. She laughed, kissed his cheek, and explained it away. "A layover mistake," she said. The hotel had comped her for the inconvenience. Jake nodded. But he didn't forget. They returned to London and resumed their routines, separate offices, overlapping schedules, weekend brunches with mutual friends. From the outside, they were flawless. But Jake began to notice things: a locked phone screen, a name he didn't recognize in her text previews, the way she always turned slightly away when taking a call. There were moments he wanted to confront her. But doubt, when seated in love, becomes a quiet observer rather than a disruptor. He chose instead to watch. To wait. Late one night, she fell asleep with her laptop open. A message popped up: "Same time next week? I miss you already." No name. No context. Just that. Jake didn't say a word. He simply closed the laptop, kissed her forehead, and stared at the ceiling for hours that he didn't yet know who the other men were. He didn't know how many there were. But he understood, in that moment, that the story they were living wasn't the one he thought they were writing, and for the first time in 3 years, he began to write his own ending. 2 years later, Jake had learned to smile without feeling it. London had turned colder, at least in their apartment. The rooms echoed more now, filled with silence instead of laughter. Lena was still stunning, still ambitious, still Lena. But she had become a stranger in soft increments. Fewer shared meals. Late meetings that spilled into overnight trips. Conversations clipped short by phantom deadlines. Jake watched her from across the kitchen island, sipping his coffee while she packed for another client summit in Barcelona. Her eyes never quite met his anymore. "Back Sunday?" he asked. She nodded, too quickly. "Yes. Early afternoon." But Jake knew she wasn't flying to Spain. The tickets in her desk drawer said Milan. One way that he didn't ask. He didn't accuse. He documented that he had started quietly, out of self-preservation. At first, just a list: dates, destinations, discrepancies. Then came screenshots, calls from unknown numbers that lasted hours. Hotel bookings under pseudonyms. Voicemails never meant for him. There was one man she saw regularly, always during her trips to Paris. Jake only knew him by initials, Dr. Another, a late-night voice on the phone, soft-spoken, persistent. A third showed up in security footage Jake had managed to obtain from a private investigator. They met in a London cafe. He touched her wrist too long. She didn't pull away, and the fourth, the one that cut deepest, was her therapist. Jake hadn't meant to uncover that. It was a name on a billing statement, one Lena had sworn was covered by work. But curiosity led him to the clinic's website. The smiling man on the homepage, Dr. Rowan, was also the one in the cafe footage. Jake had stared at that image for nearly an hour. The irony wasn't lost on him. She spoke to others to process their marriage, but never to him. Meanwhile, Lena's world remained curated, seamless. She posted smiling photos from museum exhibits, clinking champagne glasses with colleagues. Jake rarely featured anymore. When friends asked, she said he was buried in briefs. They laughed. She laughed. Jake didn't, and yet, she still came home. Still curled into his side some nights, whispered I love yous as if on cue. And for a while, Jake let her, but the truth doesn't rest quietly forever. He began assembling everything: emails, audio recordings, surveillance stills. A file, thick and deliberate. Not for revenge. For clarity. For an ending that left no room for denial. Still, part of him hoped he was wrong. That there was an explanation. That love might still be hiding beneath the wreckage. Then one night, she left her phone unlocked on the counter. A text preview glowed: he's clueless. I'll meet you at 8. That was the moment Jake stopped hoping that he copied the message. Saved the screenshot, and for the first time in their marriage, he whispered back to the silence, not anymore. Jake had never considered himself vengeful. He believed in process, in truth, in patience, but betrayal has a way of reshaping AMAN.by now. The files sat 2 inches thick, pressed into a black binder labeled only with Lena's initials. He kept it locked in his office drawer at the firm, buried beneath contracts and court exhibits. It felt appropriate, evidence among evidence. His own case, quietly assembled, each page told a story Lena had tried to hide. Plane tickets purchased under false names. A rental flat in Paris, leased for 3 months under a limited liability shell. Phone logs. Bank statements. And photographs, dozens of them, each taken by someone Jake never met, but trusted more than he trusted his own wife. He studied the images like legal briefs. There she was, leaning in toward a man at a wine bar. Another showed her stepping into a hotel lobby at midnight, alone, and leaving at dawn, not. In one, she was laughing, arms wrapped around someone's shoulders. The faces were always blurred. But Lena's was not. She never saw the lens that he wasn't looking for shame. He was looking for clarity. The day he decided to file, the air felt unnaturally still. Lena was in the kitchen, humming to herself, pouring wine. She offered him a glass, but he declined. He had stopped drinking weeks ago. He needed to stay sharp. I booked us a weekend in Devon, she said. A little escape. Jake nodded. Sounds nice. He didn't tell her he'd already spoken to a divorce attorney that morning. Or that, within hours, she'd be served papers. That night, he printed everything. One final copy. The file was heavy in his briefcase, heavier in meaning. He placed it on the polished table in the conference room of a neutral law firm, chosen to avoid conflict with his own. When Lena arrived, her heels clicked softly against marble tile, betraying none of the storm about to hit. She sat across from him. Confused. Beautiful. Composed. Jake. What is this? He slid the file across the table. Read it. She opened it with trembling fingers. Page 1 was an email chain. Page 2, a hotel invoice. Page 3, a time-stamped photo.by. Page 10, her hands were shaking. I can explain, she began. Jake looked at her, really looked, and saw none of the woman he once chased across cities. "I don't need explanations," he said, calmly. "Just one thing." She swallowed. "What's that?" He leaned forward, voice low, steady, surgical. "I want my life back." The lawyer entered. A stack of documents hit the table. Divorce. Property division. Confidentiality clauses. Jake stood, gathering nothing but his coat. As he reached the door, he paused, but didn't turn back. "You lied for years, Lena," he said. "I only needed one sentence." Then he walked away, leaving behind the file, the marriage, and the last illusion he ever held of her. The apartment echoed in her absence. Jake didn't notice it at first. He had become so used to the quiet. But now that the weight of her secrets had been lifted, the silence felt different. Not lonely. Clean. That he moved through the rooms like a man sorting through someone else's life. Lena's perfume lingered on a scarf draped over the couch. A coffee mug still sat on the windowsill, lipstick faint on the rim. These weren't memories, they were remnants. Evidence. Just like everything else that he packed her things into boxes, not out of anger, but completion. He didn't rush. Every folded sweater, every photograph removed from the frame, felt like a ritual. A slow, deliberate reclaiming. Outside, London turned grey again. Spring folded into rain, and the city moved on. So did Jake. The divorce finalized in under 2 months. Lena didn't contest it. She barely said a word during their final meeting, just signed where the lawyer pointed. Her hands were steady, but her eyes flickered, like someone watching something they'd once loved burn slowly. Knowing they'd struck the match, she never apologized. Jake never asked her to. Instead, he focused forward. He took a temporary posting in Tokyo, new language, new hours, no shared history. The apartment was small, spare, and his. No echo of Lena's voice in the hallway. No ghost in the bed beside him. At night, he walked the city streets, neon buzzing overhead. The noise comforted him, constant, honest. Nothing was pretending to be anything it wasn't. Some evenings, he reread the final sentence of the file. He's clueless. He remembered how it felt, being treated like a placeholder in his own life. But that feeling was no longer raw. It was distant now. Dull closure, he'd learned, didn't come with courtroom signatures or legal titles. It came from accepting that sometimes, the love you gave wasn't returned. Not because you weren't enough, but because the other person didn't know how to receive it. That he still thought about Lena, but not with anger. With clarity. She had made her choices. So had he. Back in London, she kept the apartment. He left the keys on the counter. No final note. No parting message. Just the echo of footsteps as he walked away for the last time. One morning, 6 months later, a message arrived. "I'm sorry. I thought I wanted everything. I didn't know what I was losing." He stared at it for a long time. Then deleted it without replying, because some sentences are better left unanswered, and some stories, no matter how they begin, only ever had one ending.